Welcome to another live and amplified livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. First, before I introduce our guests, I want to thank everybody for your continued support with the Hoedown Showdown, with the podcast, the rock show, all that fun stuff. I want to thank you all so very much for supporting that, and we'll continue getting that out to y'all every week or every other week, depending on what the platform is. But we are here for the podcast, the live and amplified livecast. I'm really excited to introduce y'all to our special guest today. We have Dariann Leigh. How's it going today?
It's good. How about you?
Doing pretty good. You know, it's a Monday. Like this morning was a little rough.
Yeah,
I had the Mondays and then the day just kind of eased in and I was like, okay,
right.
I can relax now. So
Right. It's funny how I was talking with a friend of mine this morning and we're asking each other how we were too. And I was like, isn't it weird how as you get older, you realize that if you sleep more, you almost do yourself even more dirty than if you don't sleep much.
yeah.
Like you feel even more tired the next day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Like I feel like when I get like 6 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep, it's like I wake up and I get through the day, no problem.
Exactly.
But like last night I went to bed like super early and I got like 8-9 hours of sleep. And this morning I was like, dang, I'm not ready for this. Like, I don't want to get up, but so.
It was like some sort of trick in adulting. Like the world just couldn't give us like, you never feel like you catch up to sleep. And the trick is like, even when you feel like you slept more, you just didn't get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. It's really unfortunate. I feel like I slept so hard last night and my alarm went off and I was like, man, I feel like I just fell asleep.
Right.
Like numerous hours prior.
Yeah, it was, I feel you on that one. I feel you way too hard on that one. So excited to have you on. Let's talk about like, what got you into music, your upbringing, all that stuff. So you're from Minnesota, correct?
Yes, sir.
What was it like growing up in Minnesota for you?
It was great. I grew up in a really, really small town, which a lot of people are also from small towns. Mine is very, very small. It was honestly, it's kind of one of those things that I don't know it any different, but even if I did, I think I would still choose growing up where I did, simply because of the feeling of community that is where I'm from. And the small town is just, there's something about small town USA that's so special. Minnesota is obviously very cold, which is the opposite of our situations now being in the South, but it's just so special. And every time I get the chance to go up north, I always remember how special it is, because you kind of forget about it when you live in a city and there's so many people around you when you're driving and the world just seems so big. And then you go to a small town and you're like, wow, it's really not that deep. Like the world is actually so small.
Yeah.
Like my part of the world is so small. Right.
It's, I thought when I was growing up, I thought I grew up in a small town and then I actually went to a small town and I was like, oh no. I didn't grow up in a small town. It was just like a really nice community, but living out here in Texas, doing all the traveling that I do, I drive through some of those small towns and it's like one stoplight. And if you're lucky, there's a McDonald's.
Right.
So
my hometown doesn't have either of those things, so I can't relate.
That's I understand. So growing up, how does music kind of work its way in? Was it something that's always there? Were your parents musical, or how does music kind of work its way in?
For me, it was always there. My family appreciates music and has been a part of different music throughout their lives and like choirs and things like that, but never to the capacity that I've been doing it. It was just always playing. Like my parents are very, very into music, and I have 3 older brothers, so you can imagine the vast variety of music that I grew up with. Every single one of them has a different taste. So I grew up almost like with this melting pot of crazy music all put into one, and it was just a tool that I used so often as well. I struggled in school, so writing songs was how I memorized spelling words and math problems and just different things like that. Like I used it in more than just a listening realm or writing songs when I didn't even know I was writing songs. I also used it to literally survive school, just to remember anything I was doing. Everything in my head has a song to it. It's just how I work.
I had a teacher that used to do that, and she retired recently. So she was like my 6th grade teacher. She was my 6th grade English teacher, and she had songs for everything. Like all like proper like just anything you could think of. She had a song for it, and we'd have to sing it. It was just like I couldn't do it now, but
Yeah.
I could.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. So having your family that was always kind of appreciating music and having a vast variety of influence from your brothers and probably your mother and father as well.
Yeah.
Who were you more drawn to as a kid, as far as like musically speaking? What were you listening to as a kid?
Yeah, when I was really little, it was the greats of country music, and I still listen to them now, and it feels very nostalgic for me. But talking as far back as, oh man, like George Jones, Waylon Jennings, like the true highwaymen, and the women around that time as well, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton. I used to ride in a car with my grandparents, and I'd be listening to way, way, way back when music, and I'd be like, I've never heard this, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I've recognized, even growing up now, like some of those artists have like, I've kind of makeshift my own version of the tone that they have sometimes. But I really just listened to like those greats in country music for a long time. I kind of went down a little like pop-ish, punk-ish era. I feel like all of us have a pop-punk era.
Yeah.
I definitely did too. Just every single one of them. Musical theater, you name it. There was always a spot for everything. That's why I say melting pot, because that's what I grew up in.
And it's the most accurate statement right now, because I feel like a lot of musicians were maybe not in similar situations, but they had multiple different influences, because it's not like it was in the 1960s or 70s where everybody was listening to one basic type of music. It's growing up in the 90s and 2000s, mom listened to this, dad listened to this, and then if you had brothers and sisters, and so you just kind of got it from every angle, which is made music so much more interesting now, because it's like they're drawing influence. Even if they don't want to admit it, it's like you're drawing influences from everywhere right now. For
sure. It's really cool though. It adds so many layers to it. It's so unique.
Yeah. So I have to ask, you brought up the pop punk phase that you went through. Now, did you go as far as like dyeing your hair and doing all that crazy stuff, or was it just more of the music?
I think I was more just into the music. There was at one point where you just like opened my brain to a part of my memory that I didn't even think of until now. There was when I was in high school, my senior year, people were doing this thing called a peekaboo in their hair, which is where you just have like a piece back here that you would dye a certain color. My parents would like never let me do it, but I was obviously at an age where they're like, you can kind of do whatever you want. Just do it safely. And I had done like a blue piece of hair in the back, but it like faded out so quick and became blonde, so it wasn't really anything crazy. And I did it like during the summer too, so it wasn't like in my senior pictures and stuff. But yeah, I guess that was probably as far as that went. I totally forgot about that though. You just reminded me that I did that.
It almost feels like a test though, doesn't it, where they're like, your parents are like, okay, you're at that age, you can do what you want to do, and they're trying to see how far you're going to push that envelope. And and at the time you're like, oh, I'm going to do this do the peekaboo with blue hair, and it's going to be the biggest rebellion I could do. And then in reality it was just like, oh,
it's literally a piece of blue hair. Like it's the most tame thing ever. I'm such a rule follower that like that was like as far as my like rules bent.
It's like you could have went out and got like a temp tattoo or just something really random like that, and then they would have really regretted that decision. But
instead I just got a piece of blue hair for a little while. I would go to school and people like, part of your hair is blue, and I was like, I know. I did that on purpose.
I did in college. I had the idea. Have you ever seen the movies Major League with Charlie Sheen? So one year in college, I was really drunk, and I was like, I'm going to go as Rick Vaughn for Halloween this year. Like, cause we did like Halloween parties and whatnot. And I paid my buddy, like I went to the store and I bought a hat, and I found a jersey online, just like all this stuff. I was like, I got to do the hair though. And so I paid my buddy $10 to cut my hair like his hair, except I didn't realize that either I was going to have to shave my head completely bald to get rid of it, or I was going to have to walk around like an idiot for 3 or 4 weeks until it grew out enough for me to go get a haircut. And it was
That's some dedication.
It was also at a point in my life where I didn't really care. Like it was
Right.
just like, we'll do it. I
You're
wasn't.
having a good time.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so you're in high school. Are you playing music at this point, or where does that kind of come into play?
Yeah, I started, so I wasn't even in choir for a while. I was in band and choir all throughout elementary school. They started in fifth grade where I'm from. And then where I'm from, K through 12 is all in the exact same building. So high school to me is 7 through 12.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other people are like, they have their middle school ages. That's just like not something I experienced.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in it, I guess, during your middle school ages. That's like seventh, eighth, ninth grade, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I joined into choir when I was in like ninth or 10th grade, but I'd been in band that whole time. And then I started slowly doing some like solo stuff out, playing, learned how to play guitar. And it was kind of one of those things where it was an outlet for a while. And then I realized that I really wanted to do it in front of people. And I like made a bet with my mom. I was like, I bet I can go do this. And I don't even think there was another end of the bet. It was just that I bet I can go do it. Like, I bet
Mm-hmm.
I can go sing in front of these people for this competition. And literally just went and I did it. And she was like, I had a feeling you were going to get the worm when you did it. And you literally did. So it was literally from like this little competition that I did that just kind of like pushed everything forward. But I'd been doing like musical ish stuff growing up. So it wasn't out of the norm for me, but it was definitely me. I was very shy. So it was me stepping out of the norm of like what I was used to.
Yeah, it was kind of like the safety of the school. We'll
Yeah,
call it school organizations, and then you
right.
were like took that step outside, took a chance, and was like,
Exactly.
all right, I'm going to start. Maybe you're not writing your own music at this point, but you're definitely picking songs and just kind of expressing yourself in a
Yeah.
less traditional way.
Yeah, I mean, I was writing music well before I even knew what I was doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
even as soon as honestly as I think as soon as I was able to start writing, I was writing like full paragraphs of stuff that was very melodic.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that at the time. Like it had a melody in my head, and now I think back and I'm like, I was literally writing songs in like third grade, which is crazy.
Yeah,
But I would just keep them to myself. I was like a closed door singer, I guess is what you could say. So I just do it all at home. Then I did that competition and it literally just exactly
yeah,
like you're saying though, like
yeah,
outside of school walls, like it was finally
yeah,
something that was a little more expressive on myself and not just like a choir situation.
for sure, for sure. So that competition that you participated in, was that like the light switch that you needed, or was it what was it about that competition that just kind of made it all clear for you?
Yeah, I'd always wanted to sing in public, especially like solo, but I was so nervous too. And that was really like the one time where I was like, we're just gonna do it. Why not? I'm 14. Like, you have nothing really to lose at that point. So I was like, that it really kind of was a light switch for me that of maybe not so much accepting it myself because I knew I wanted that, but
Mm-hmm.
letting it be publicly accepted. I guess not
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to be accepted or not, but just letting it almost be known outside of myself that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I refer to it as a light switch, and it definitely is kind of that. It's always interesting to look at those pivotal moments in your career
Right.
where it's like, oh, hey, if I had not done that competition, I would have just went through school, done choir, done maybe a musical or two, played in the band, and then that's it. Or maybe go to college. Um, uh, so kind of writing your own music, did you know, or when did you kind of realize like, hey, I need to take some of this stuff that I've been working on, because you mentioned that you'd been writing for a long
Yeah.
time. When did you kind of make that connection? Was it that competition that you were in that like, hey, I need to take this music, or was it the competition then you just started playing and you were like, hey, I need to start doing originals? How kind of clarify that for me a little bit? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I really that entire year, which sounds it's 10 years ago now, of being 14 at that time, it
Yeah.
was me very much so accepting into what I wanted to do. And again, like I had said, like doing it publicly, but I'd started playing guitar, which is when I
Mhm.
actually really started writing the songs.
Mhm.
More than just like a melody in my head, more of a structured song, and
Mhm.
really figuring out what that really is. Like, what is a structured song? Well, it's, you know, three verses and three choruses or whatever it was. And that was really when I started really just diving in and discovering so much more.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Was there somebody that you turned to as far as like when you started working on your music and writing your own music and you had kind of went through this entire process during that year? Did you turn to somebody like, hey, I'm writing my own music. Can you teach me? Or was this was obviously during a time that like YouTube is here.
Right.
Were you more self-taught, or did you go to somebody to be like, hey, how do you write music? Or how do I take this and make it better?
I don't know that it was ever a question I asked how to write music. I think it was just something I very strongly felt, which sounds crazy because really, how do you write music? You know,
Mhm.
there's structure to
Mhm.
it. But I think the best part about writing music, and I'm still doing it every single time I write, is there isn't any rules to the good songs.
Mhm.
So when you're thinking about it so structurally, yeah, it's hard. I started taking vocal lessons and doing guitar lessons. I predominantly learned guitar on YouTube, like learned how to
Yeah.
play chords, whatever, and just soared from there. But it was really just something that I kind of figured out. I never asked anyone how to write a song. I just kind of looked at lyrics of maybe other songs and was like,
Mhm.
okay, so it looks like there's three verses and three choruses. Oh, what's a bridge? Okay, this is a bridge. And I'd played in band all the
Yeah.
time. So I knew how a song was structured.
Mhm.
So it was never really something I questioned, shockingly enough. I've never even thought about that if I ever asked
Yeah.
someone, but no, I didn't.
Nice. It's just always interesting because it's like some musicians, they can just kind of seamlessly make that transition, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just have that ability to, oh, hey, if I have a question what this is, either I'm going to figure it out myself or I'm going to look it up or whatever.
right,
And then some people, they just kind of need to be taught or
right.
told, or they feel like they need to turn to somebody. So it's always kind of an interesting conversation to
Yeah,
have in that regards. So,
yeah.
um, so you turn, or you're 14, playing music, all that fun stuff. You're going through high school. Now, is college kind of something that starts coming up, or was it always, I want to go to Nashville and that's it?
Right. I went to college for a little bit.
Mhm.
I did one semester on campus, one semester off. It was really that first like month of college where I was like, yeah, I think I was trying to follow these like clear guidelines of what you're
Mhm.
supposed to do in your life.
Mhm.
I was actually thinking about this today. Like the thing about college that was so attractive was that there is a set in stone thing where you know, okay, if I take these classes, I get all these things, like I'll get a job, I'll do these things, you know, trying to become a successful adult.
Mhm.
The thing about music is there is no clear path to that. But I started playing out and I was doing like, I think I did 25 shows a month of December, like
Oh
Christmas
wow.
themed shows. And obviously doing that amongst taking finals is not easy.
Yeah.
And it was after that that I was like, I think I'm gonna move back home and I'm going to pursue music and I'll, you know, finish out the year of college, do whatever I need to do there. But I'm going to then, like, I think it was later that summer, I take my first trip to Nashville and it just all went from there.
Nice. Sometimes that's all you need, is that you gave it the old college try. Like you
Exactly,
gave,
literally.
yeah. And I think a lot of kids kind of feel that same way,
Right,
but they don't see that other avenue of, oh, hey, this is what I want to do. I don't necessarily need to go to college for this.
exactly.
And that degree doesn't necessarily always mean that you're going to get a job. It doesn't, like, it's, if 15 years ago, yeah, maybe, but
Right,
nowadays it doesn't guarantee you're going to get a job.
right.
Um, and that's just kind of where the uh, economics of the whole thing is right now. But, so you gave it the try and you made the transition. That first Nashville trip, did you go there to play music, or were you just kind of going on a vacation?
I went actually to record, like right
Okay.
off the bat. I came to Nashville to record. I'd met someone that was able to help me out a little bit to kind of understand what I was necessarily was never a dip my toes into. It was a full dive
Yeah,
head first.
that's
So they were able to help me out. We got linked up to a studio. I did some recording, recorded an entire 6 song EP, released all of that the next year, like one by one each month.
mhm.
And yeah, it really from that point, it was like that decisive decision to leave college and just dive in where everything just started.
So this was all in like 2019
I guess
or
would have been,
2018, I
yeah, like
guess.
2017, 2018,
Okay.
19 range.
Yeah. So
That's a
then,
large range, but
right.
somewhere in there.
Well, because I was just looking at your Spotify playlist, and you had a nice little chunk there in 2019. So
Yeah,
does that
that's
mean that
all the
you
music from then. Yeah.
yeah? So does that mean that you moved to Nashville either right before the pandemic or during the pandemic?
I moved in November, in November it'll be 2 years. So I waited a little bit. I moved
Mm-hmm.
after. It was so chaotic. I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on.
Yeah. Well, and I've talked to a few Nashville musicians that have did something similar, where either they were planning on moving right as the pandemic hit, and then they
Yeah.
waited a year, or they just happened to come in like right at the end of 2020. And it was like, man, if you were moving to Nashville during that time, that was like the worst time to move to Nashville, because you had the tornado, you had the pandemic, and then you had that explosion on Christmas of 2020, just like all these crazy things happening. And it was like,
Yeah.
man, I think that scared me off of Nashville for a little bit, like just seeing all the craziness that was kind of happening there.
Yeah, I mean, I left the day before the tornado hit, which is the whole thing is so devastating.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been again back here recording. I traveled back and forth for those entire few year period, and then yeah, the pandemic hit, and I was planning on moving later that year, and it just obviously put a halt on so much. So it was that weird chunk of time of just live streaming, doing all the things, writing songs, playing shows when we could, and then eventually was ready to move.
Nice. So you're in Nashville now. You've been there for a good couple of years. How's Nashville been treating you the last couple of years?
It's been good. I am thankful that I traveled back and forth so much before, so I met a lot of people, kind of made a circle,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was incredibly and is incredibly helpful when you move here to have some people, or moving anywhere, having people is so helpful. And that was, I think, the one thing that made the biggest difference for me, at least mentally, was knowing that I wasn't just leaving everything that I knew to go to some place that I didn't know, was that I'd been there so many times and kind of had like a decisive idea of what I wanted to do.
Nice, nice. And how's so been there? You said 2 year or 2 year, November will be 2 years,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How's Nashville changed you as a musician? How has it kind of challenged you musically?
Yeah, I think being challenged is the best way to say how it has changed me as a musician, is just seeing the caliber of which musicians hold themselves in, and being in rooms with people that are exponentially better than you, because it forces you to become better too. I like to be around people that are a million times better than me because they make me better. And it's my favorite thing is to be challenged in those rooms, because it really kind of puts you in a position where you're baptized by fire. Like you're gonna go sit around a room with people that are really good
Mm-hmm.
and are much more advanced than you, so that way you have to do that too. You either make it or you kind of crumble in those moments, where I kind of had my fair share of both. There's been times where I'm like, I'm not cut out to write the song with these people right now, and then there's times where I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do this. This is challenging in a good way. It's been really, really good. I've appreciated everyone that's welcomed me in, and I've been very lucky, but also just have been surrounded by so many good people that it's just been such a blessing through and through.
Was there a specific moment over the last 2 years that you realized that, hey, I can hang here in Nashville, I can hang with these musicians? Was there like that late switch moment for you?
Um, I think honestly that I felt like that before I moved, because I'd written a little bit in town before I moved, and I felt like I almost felt a lot more understood than when I wasn't doing music. When I do music, I feel a lot more understood, a lot more seen. On and off stage. Obviously on stage you're very seen, but like off stage especially, like your personality is related to, there's people that are like-minded individuals, and I just felt like even before I moved that it was the best choice for me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So it's 2023 as we're recording this. You released a single earlier this year, Blame It On Me. Where are you kind of at right now? Is Blame It On Me leading to a bigger project, or where are you kind of at right now?
Yeah, right now it's a big planning period for me. I have a few songs that I'm really confident in that I'm actually starting to hit the studio with here soon
Nice.
for next year. Next year is supposed to be a little bit more simple, like another year of charging up and getting everything ready, but I think we might be heading full force into the new year, and 2024 is going to be really awesome.
Nice. Are you thinking releasing music, touring? When you say charging up, what do you kind of mean?
All of the above.
Okay.
Normally, I release at least a song or two in a year. I'm thinking we might be doing exponentially more than that,
Nice.
which I'm very excited about. And just like a bunch of projects that I'm really excited to dive into. You know, we got Christmas coming up and kind of figuring out what I want to do there.
Nice.
'Cause I used to do so much, and I was like, maybe we should do something more again.
Nice.
And
Nice.
yeah, just songwriting. I've been writing so much and feeling confident in the songs that I'm writing, and just true songs that I feel like are true to who I am. And if the story isn't something that I personally experience, at least like the melody and the sound and all of that is so true to who I am too. If I'm writing for somebody else, like I feel like there's a little bit of hint of like, oh, you wrote this with Dariann, didn't you? Like it has
Yeah.
that kind of click to it. And it's really been a year for me of songwriting, focusing on
Nice.
songwriting. So I'm really excited to hit the studio and see what people think.
For sure. For sure. That's really cool. And to touch on the Christmas thing, I wish more independent musicians did Christmas music.
Yeah. It's tough because you only get a couple months, but it
Right.
is so fun.
But it's also one of those things. Yeah, you only get a couple of months, but you don't have to come out with a new song every year. You could
Right.
literally, yeah. So
It's true.
it's just one of those things where I enjoy listening to Christmas music, and when I can hear independent musicians kind of jump in on that,
Right.
I'm always down. So you brought up that you've been doing a lot of writing right now. What's kind of your approach when it comes to writing? Are you very diligent with your writing? Are you like, hey, 3 hours today, I'm going to write, or are you very free flowing and just kind of whenever it hits, it hits?
I would say happy medium between the
Okay.
two. I will sit down if I have the opportunity to and figure something out. I have scheduled writes every single week. So there's a little bit of the, all right, this day there's going to be this many hours of it. And randomly I'll be taking a voice memo really quick in my car before I go into the grocery store because something just came to me. So
Okay.
it's very much so the happy medium of the two.
Sure, that's really cool. Is it what's the approach when you go into one of these scheduled writes? Is it you by yourself, or are you with is it more like a co-write situation?
Yeah, I tend to keep the rights by myself, just very free flowing. But if they're scheduled, it's typically with other people. And I normally have like a bunch of hooks in my phone that I really like, or maybe a melody, lyrics, something that I can go in with. But sometimes other people say something and I'm like, we're doing that today. We're not
Nice.
doing any of these. Push these to the wayside. We're doing that today. It's also just so dependent on the mood. Like, what is the vibe? Are we sad today? We'll probably write a sad song.
Right.
I'm a sucker for a sad song, so I have to discipline myself to not only write sad songs. I was in a write a week ago, and they're like, "We're not writing a sad song today," and I was like, "Cool, we're
That's
not
fine.
writing a sad song today." But yeah, it's all about just doing it all, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about that. I will love listening to sad songs on long road trips because I can just kind of get into my feels without having to worry about having to get out of the car and have to deal with people. I can I can like change my mood. It's like, oh, I've got a half hour. Okay, maybe I start playing something a little bit more upbeat.
Right.
But so one thing that I've always really been interested in, is there a song you are currently working on that you're maybe stuck? What's a song you're currently working on that you're like struggling to finish, that you're trying to figure that out right now?
I mean, there's been a couple writes that I've been on where we've been like, hey, let's hang this up for the day and come back to it tomorrow, or in a week, whatever. I have one song that I'm really confident in that I really like that I've been writing with two friends of mine, and we are so adamant that we do it right that we throw out lines like we have it finished, but we want it to be 10 times better.
Okay.
So it's one of those like, hey, let's get together and like recap this entire thing, cut out this, make this work, like really almost like coming at it like you're doing some sort of like huge project, but it's just a song, which is equally as huge, you know? Yeah, it's I have a couple, I guess.
Yeah. So that song that you're that is done, but you're just kind of keep revisiting. Why do you think you keep revisiting it? Isn't at some point shouldn't you just kind of say, hey, this song's fine or it's good?
Yeah, I think that's a really important perspective to have too. I think for us, it's been one of those things where the song, the topic of it hits so much, and I'm not, like not saying it because I think one of us might release it, and I
Okay,
don't want to like break the ice for them.
fair.
But we feel so strongly about the song topic because growing up, we all go through so much,
Hmm.
and you want to feel validated in it, and we don't want to say anything that's too typical. Like we want to rely on the atypical, and we're also picky, but I think we're picky in the best ways that we're making it work every single time.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I was sitting there. I was like, once you kind of mentioned that you weren't gonna go into any specific details, I was like, okay, we're good here. You know,
It's
because
like one of those songs that's like under lock and key, and we're all like, okay, when we finish this, one of us is releasing it, like sort of a thing. Like we want it to be done well.
yeah,
So,
it,
like
it,
if I spit it out, they'd be like, "Why'd you do that?"
I got it. Fair enough. It'll be a fight to the death once you get it to that point where it's ready to release to see who's going to release it.
Yes, hopefully not a fight to the death, but a fight.
Fair
We
enough.
can
Fair
write more
enough.
songs. I like life.
For sure. So kind of moving forward, how often are you playing shows right now? Is there something you're doing consistently or are you just more focused writing right now?
Yeah, right now, I typically play 3 times a week downtown.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm doing 1 times a week, kind of slowed down a little bit. But yeah, writing, playing downtown. My schedule's always on my website, so people can get a good taste of what's going on there. But yeah, it always kind of changes a little bit. Summer's slowing down now, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, I really like summer, so I'm kind of sad about it. But summer's slowing down now, so there's not really many more touring dates. I don't have any more for the summer or the fall, but already kind of booking up for looking forward to the new year and summer next year. So yeah, just getting all the things done.
Yeah.
It's a busy season.
Yeah. It's one of those times where it's like the shows slow down. Yes, cool. But you got to start preparing for 2024, which sounds absurd because it's August, but
Right.
you're also like, it takes that long to get ready. Like you got to think about it. Like if you want to book a venue, venues are already starting to book up for 2024. You have to get yourself in there. So,
right. 2024 doesn't even sound like a year to me yet. So looking into it is so hard.
yeah,
But it's necessary.
Oh yeah, for sure. I keep telling people, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do that in 2024. It's like, yeah, but what about 2023? And I'm like, hey, it's 2023. We've already got our plans in place and we're moving towards it, but you got to start looking at 2024. So kind of going through it, writing, all that stuff. What keeps you motivated as a musician? What keeps you going?
I feel for me, a lot of the motivation is also self-discipline, like knowing that I need to do certain things, and knowing that I'm the only one that's really responsible for making sure certain things get done because it is on me.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel like when the motivation isn't there, the self-discipline is there.
Mm.
And I feel that way about many different things in my life. But for me, it's always just thinking about how long I've been doing it. Like today is nothing versus the 10 years I've been doing this for. Like also there was a while where I was very softly doing it. I was still in high school, but like today's hardship or whatever it is nothing compared to all of the things that brought me here. And there was a little girl that was holding a Barbie microphone or Fisher Price microphone at 5 years old for a reason,
For sure. 100% agree. It's like you look at all the work you've done up to this point, and even though you're stuck or not motivated or just kind of fed up, are you fed up enough to let all that hard work go?
Exactly. That's where self-discipline kicks in.
Yeah. I wish I had a little bit more self-discipline, but it's all good. My lack of self-discipline kind of comes from taking care of myself. Like I need to go to the gym more than I do and all that fun stuff. But, we'll get that figured out here eventually.
Yeah, everyone does.
So one thing I wanted to talk about as we kind of start wrapping this up here a little bit, on your Instagram page, you put that you're writing soundtracks for the Hairbrush Singers and Dashboard Drummers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you do regularly?
Yeah,
Or
all of the time. Little, I still on stage will be singing songs that I've sang what feels like hundreds of times, and will still be like, ding, 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 like my entire life.
Nice. What is your go-to song when you're just alone singing into the hairbrush?
Ooh, it kind of depends on the mood. Like for throwback songs, it's probably something, hmm, like old school country maybe, or some of those pop punk like Mayday Parade, We the
Yeah,
Kings sort of things.
nice.
Or now lately it's been a lot of Louis Capaldi, who I think is such a mood as a human. I love him and I love his
Yeah,
music. I go all over the board really. Like I can listen to a band for a little bit or a person and just all out for a very long period of time, and then it's like I don't listen to them for a while
for-
after that, or until their next project.
yeah. I,
Lately, I've had the this is so cringy. I've had the "I'm Just Ken" song from the Barbie movie stuck in my head. It's like I'm walking around my apartment being like, "I'm just Ken" all the time.
nice. That's funny. Hey, but it's timely. It's it's a very timely song.
Exactly.
Oh, so
You call it that.
right. Oh, kind of calling back to your pop punk phase. Do you think there's a universe or a timeline where you take a step back from country and do a pop punk project?
Um, Probably not that harsh, but maybe like I like a little bit more of an edge to my country.
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily completely dived. That did not make any grammatical sense. Not necessarily completely diving into something like that, but like some of them have a little bit of grit to them, I guess you could
Gotcha.
say. A little
So
more edge.
maybe lean into a little bit more southern rock, but not going into full
Yeah.
pop punk.
We're not going full force.
Hey,
I
you know what?
appreciate the music though. It's some of my favorite.
For sure, for sure. It's just always interesting when you see a lot of these like mainstream artists that are doing stadium tours and stuff. Like Snoop Dogg, he did hip hop for the longest time, and then he did like a soul album and then a reggae
Yeah.
album where they just kind of flip it on their heads. It's like I've always found that kind of interesting, and just
Yeah.
kind of exploring these different passions and
Right.
interests in music has always been kind of an interesting concept to me. So
Yeah, I mean music is it's art, so it's everybody has different versions of it that they like. I mean, I'm not going to take anything off the table completely, but
yeah,
I feel like there's so many, like you're saying, like there's so many prime examples of just like being willing to dive into different areas just
yeah.
because you simply like it, and you
Hmm.
perform things and you have so much more fun when you're doing things that you like.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So outside of music, as you kind of need time to decompress and step away and whatnot, what do you do for fun? What are some of your hobbies? What does Darian do when she needs to decompress?
Oh, what does Darian do? That's a good one. I like to spend a lot of time on water, lakes, oceans, pools, ponds. Like that's
Nice.
kind of, I'm from Minnesota, so the land of 10,000 lakes. So
Yep.
it's very much so like it's in my blood to want to be around nearby water. Kayaking, anything outside. Honestly, I grew up playing, eating dirt. Like that's very much so how I grew up. So it's very much so how I still am now. Anything outside. I like to do some crafty things every once in a while,
Nice.
but lately I've been trying to pick up reading more simply
Mm,
because there's just so much enjoyment in shutting off your phone and not
mm,
watching the TV and not having anything around you and just completely unplugging and sitting outside and reading a
yeah.
book. Like
Yeah.
it's so peaceful, and I completely underestimated how much joy that could bring.
Nice. I've been trying to write more. Like
Yeah,
just I don't like reading books, but I've been trying to write a book. And just
gotcha.
in the back of my head, it's like, well, maybe if I write it and I can kind of understand
Yeah,
the process, maybe I'll start reading more.
right.
So
I think that's
that
cool.
that
I love
that's
writing.
it's fun. It's interesting. It's definitely a different part of the brain.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic though in so many ways. I journal every single night, and it's one of the most freeing things that I do. And a lot of what I write about sometimes comes straight from my journal. So I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
I need to start doing that a little bit more because there's a million times where I'll have an idea and then I'll forget it.
Right.
And then it's just like, dang it, I should have wrote that down.
Right.
So
It's cool.
yeah. Um, So if anybody wants to check out your music, catch a show as the year kind of wraps up, or just interact with you on social, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at DariannLeigh.com. That's where all of my stuff is. It's kind of like the home base for people. But otherwise, on all of your streaming platforms, all social medias, it's just at Dariann Leigh. I try to keep it very simple. Typically, there's nobody else with my same name, so you don't really have to worry about it. But yeah, my website is the best spot to get show schedules, merchandise. You can find all my music there. It'll link you to your preferred platform or your preferred social media form. So you can go to my website. That's a good home base for you.
Sure, for sure. And then just one last question that I like to ask. Throw one random question out there. What's something about Minnesota that you miss that you cannot get in Nashville?
Ooh, this might be a hot take. Minnesota lakes are just better.
Mm,
You
fair.
don't get them for as long, but because Minnesota freezes over, a lot
Mm,
of the grossness dies off,
mhm.
and it just rejuvenates every single year. And the lakes are just better. I can't say that too harshly because I do need to discover more lakes in Tennessee in order to
Yeah.
like really stamp confirmed onto that statement. But as of right now, I'll say that pretty confidently
Mm,
that I
yeah.
do think Minnesota lakes. They're just built different.
As a fellow that grew up in the Midwest, I grew up in Chicago. So Lake Michigan, I 100% understand what you mean about the lakes being able to freeze over. Lake Michigan does not freeze over. So that lake can be very disgusting. I will
Right.
say that. But I spent a lot of time in Kentucky and Tennessee. In Western Kentucky, they have some of the best lakes I've ever seen in my life. So
I'm sure.
I will
There's
just,
just something to be said about like putting your hand a few inches underwater, if not even feet, like your feet in the water, and still being able to see them when you're like 8 feet out. That's like my
mhm,
favorite thing ever is at least like you don't have to be able to see your toes all the
yeah.
time, but like some of the lakes, most of the lakes at back home, like I
uh,
can see to the bottom of it, which is so fascinating. I could
Nice.
just get lost staring into it all day.
I need to go to. I haven't been to Minnesota that many times. I drove through after college because I was going to go work in North Dakota because I was an
Oh,
idiot.
we're at North Dakota.
Williston, North Dakota.
Nice.
It was during the oil fracking boom, and
Right.
apartments cost $3,000 a month. And I was like, "What is this, New York?"
Right.
I was going there for essentially a very low paying job because I was coming fresh out of college and yeah,
Gotcha.
couldn't make
Interesting.
it
I
work.
went to college in North Dakota. Where I'm from in North Dakota are very, very close. People go
Mm-hmm.
there all the time. So I'm very familiar.
Nice. Used to work with a guy. He lived in Minot.
Yeah.
And what school did he go to? He went to school in North Dakota somewhere. I think it was,
Probably
is
like
there?
NDSU or UND, something like
Yeah.
that, or one of the techs. There's
Yeah.
actually a few colleges in North Dakota, but I have
Yeah.
family in Minot, so I'm familiar with that too.
Nice. I cannot say NDSU too loudly because I went to SIU and we play each other in football all the time. So
Gotcha. I
like,
feel that. I
yeah.
get that.
It's like the most competitive part of me, but it is what it
It's
is.
okay. I mean, I went to the University of Minnesota's rival for hockey, so
Okay,
I get it.
fair enough, fair enough. But really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with us. It was an absolute blast. You're welcome back on anytime. So when you get the next project ready to go in 2024, we'd love to have you back on. So
That'd be
uh,
really cool. Thank you for
really,
having me. This has been so fun.
yeah, absolutely. Really enjoyed it. Feel free to check out Dariann's music. If you're listening to this on Spotify, we have her Spotify link in the description, so you can find it there. Check out all her music. It's absolutely amazing. Really enjoy Blame It On Me.
Thank
That's just
you.
my personal preference. But she's got a lot of other really amazing music, and we will see you all next time.